Thursday! Happy New Year! Now, as is tradition here in Complicated Knots, we're going to kick the year off with this year's Chinese Zodiac animal, even though I know it doesn't tick over until the end of the month. And of course, this year is Year of the Snake. So we're going to be making this coiled up little hognose baby. Now wait, I can hear you say, don't we already have a snake pattern? We do, we have two on the channel. So we have a little mini spiraling snake and a maxi spiraling snake. What's really fun about today's pattern is that at a certain point in the head, you can swap to making the spiral body if you prefer. That's the thing about snakes. You got to make them to scale. Let's get into it. Okay, let's talk tools and materials. So for today's project, you're going to need 8-ply, 100% acrylic yarn, also known as DK, in 3 colors. You are going to need a main base color, which I'll be referring to as your mid-tone. You're going to need a darker color to add the pattern, and you're going to need a lighter color for the belly. So on our example here, I used cream, yellow, and orange. And for today, I'm going to be using cream, beige, and like gray brown. That's an albino morph, and I'm trying to do a like slightly more standard coloration. You're also going to need a pair of 9mm safety eyes, a 3.5mm hook, pins and needles, scissors, and some stuffing. Now you can also have some stitch markers handy if that is something that makes patterns easier for you. A written version of today's pattern will be made available to my patrons and will also be available on Etsy, and I will leave links to both in the description down below for anybody who's interested. So our little snake today is made in 3 pieces. So we have our head piece, we have the coils, and then we have this little tail piece. And assembly on him can be quite tricky. So if you're somebody who struggles a little bit with slightly more complex assembly, I do encourage you to watch the sewing/assembly section of this video first before you decide whether or not you want to make this pattern. Oh, also there's a lot of color changes. Sorry about that. So we are going to start in our belly color, which for me is cream, and I'm going to start with a magic ring. Into this magic ring, we're going to place 3 single crochet. 1, my yarn's already splitting. 2, 3. And now we're going to make the tip of his pointy little nose. So we do that by working a 2-chain picot. So we chain twice, 1 and 2, and then slip stitch into the first chain that we did. Now, if you would prefer to make a regular snake instead of a hognose snake, you can just skip that picot altogether and the rest of the head should turn out perfectly snakish. We're then going back to working in our magic ring and we're going to work 3 more single crochet. It is important to note that that picot is not adding a stitch to our round, it is just adding a decoration. So we have 6 stitches and a picot in the middle of them. There is the little tip of our snake's nose, so it is upside down when I hold it that way. It's like that. So in row 2, we do start with the color changes. So we start with a single crochet, changing to our mid-tone, which for me is beige. So to work the color changes for this pattern, we are going to insert our hook into the stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. So you have 2 loops of your old color on your hook. Hold that out of the way, grab a strand of the color you're changing to, and pinch it on the inside of the work at the base of the stitch. And then we pinch the new color on the inside of the work at the base of the stitch. Yarn over and pull through both loops with your new color, and then just give a gentle tug on the tails of your old color to scooch the stitch down into place. So you can see there what that's given us is a single crochet in our old color, but our new color is now on the hook, ready to go. So for this pattern, all of the color changes need to happen in the stitch before you need the new color to be active. I will be calling out as many of them as I possibly can though, so don't be too worried about that. Continuing row 2, we are going to work 4 single crochet in the back loops only. So looking down at our stitches, you can see that they have 2 loops each. We have a loop on the side facing us and a loop on the side facing away. So when you work in the back loops only, you insert your hook just through the loop on the side facing away and work your stitch into there. Now this does leave the front loops free. And again, that's not structural, that's just decoration. So that's 1, and 2. Then we want to be careful to skip the picot. So find the first stitch on the other side, trying to stay in the middle of the focus ring, and work a single crochet through that as well. 3, and in this 4th one we're changing back to our cream. And I am just going to be pulling mine across instead of trimming off each time, just because it ends up saving you some yarn. So change back to our cream there. and work the final single crochet of the round. Like so. So there we are at the end of row 2. So heading into row 3, we're going to be staying in our pale colour for a while. So we start with a single crochet. And then we're going to work an increase. So we work the first single crochet of the increase as per usual. And in the second stitch of that increase, we're going to change back to our mid-tone, which I may occasionally refer to as beige. Then in this mid-tone, we're going to work an increase, changing to our dark colour. So that's first stitch normal, second stitch is the colour change. This time grabbing a strand of my, I think this colour is officially called brown marble, but it's always interesting because depending on what colours you put it with, it sometimes looks brown and it sometimes looks grey. This is not very big to have this many colours attached already, but this is it. This is all of the colours. And then in our dark colour, we are going to work a single crochet, changing back to our mid-tone. In the mid-tone, we're going to work an increase, changing back to our pale colour. 1 and 2. And then with our pale colour back on our hook, we are going to work a final increase in the round. 1 and 2. Now at this point you should have 10 stitches in your round, and I do still have all 3 of my colours attached, and they're probably going to stay attached for the rest of this piece. So row 4 starts with 2 single crochet, changing to our mid-tone in the second stitch. In our mid-tone we're going to work 2 increases. So 1, 2, and then 3 single crochet, and the second of those stitches should fall into that dark stitch from the previous round. So 1, 2, 3, and then 2 increases, changing back to our pale colour in the second increase. Like so, and then we just have 1 single crochet to finish our round. You can of course complete this pattern without any colour changes whatsoever. Oh, frankly, I think that takes the difficulty all the way down. There should now be 14 stitches in your round. In row 5 we start with 3 single crochet, changing to our mid-tone in the third. 1, 2, 3, 2 single crochet, changing to our dark in the second. 1 and 2, 5 single crochet across, changing back to our mid-tone. 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is the 5th. 2 single crochet, changing back to our pale colour. 1 and 2, and then 2 single crochet in our pale colour, back to the start of the round. 1 and 2. So that's what it looks like from the underside, and on top we've got these lovely bands of colour starting to form. So we have one more row to do, and then we're going to insert our eyes. So in row 6 we work 1 single crochet, changing to our beige, and that's going to seem very, very early, just because you can see there that we're still kind of in the middle of what we consider to be our belly patch, and that's okay. So we are then going to be working a single crochet 3 together. Now that is basically a decrease over 3 stitches. So there are 2 ways that you can work these. There's a standard way and an invisible way. So the standard way is inserting your hook through the first stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, insert your hook through the second stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, and then insert your hook through the third stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. Then with 4 loops on your hook, you're going to yarn over and pull through all 4. And there is your standard single crochet 3 together. You can see there it's kind of a very visible decrease in my opinion, but it's perfectly fine and functional. I personally prefer the invisible decreases. And how you work an invisible single crochet 3 together is you just pick up the front loops only of the next 3 stitches. You yarn over and you pull up 1 loop through all 3, leaving you with just 2 loops on your hook, and then you yarn over and you complete the stitch. And it's a much sneakier way of doing that stitch. And so that's how I prefer to do them, but like either way is fine. It's just a personal preference thing. We're then going to work 6 single crochet across the top of the head. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Then we're going to work another single crochet 3 together, but this time we're going to use it to change back to our pale color. So I'm going to get all the way up to the final yarn over and pull through. So if you're doing standard decreases, this is that point where you have 4 loops on your hook. Invisible decreases, you'll have 2. Hold that color out of the way, grab your pale color, and yarn over and complete the stitch. And we're going to work the final stitch of our round, which is just a single crochet. Okay, cool. So this is what our head currently looks like. Now we are going to pause here at the end of row 6, and we're going to pop our eyes in. I have my eyes here. I'm using 9mm eyes, which are perhaps a little bit big for this project today, but I like them with giant eyes. I cannot help myself, never been able to. So your eyes should go into row 4. So we're going to count back from our starting magic ring and go 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm going to pop 1 in on one side of the head, and they need 3 visible stitches between them. So 1, 2, 3, and the other one should go here according to that logic. This is just starting positions. We are going to move them around a little bit because that is a Complicated Knots special of extremely crooked eyes. So let's just move that one back a row. And I think that's pretty good. So when you're happy with the positioning of your eyes, snap your backs on, and I'm going to try for clicky sounds. We're going to do our best here. Just see if there are clicky sounds to be heard, we will hear them. I'm not sure that back is going to go on this stem. Nothing. One more. I think that was actually a clicky sound. We have been blessed. There we are, guys. 2025. It is going to be blessed by the clickies. And so there are our eyes attached. So moving along into row 7, still with our pale color on our hook, we're going to start curving the body down. And it should be noted at this point here that if you would like to use the spiral body instead, which is absolutely an option, you can swap at this point and just pick up from row 7 of this pattern, and I'll add a card or a link or something so you can find it if you like. It's also available here on YouTube. But if you are trying to go for the recalcitrant little knot snake, then carry on. So row 7 starts with 2 increases, changing to our mid-tone in the second increase. So there's 1. And 2. Then in our mid-tone, we're going to work a decrease, changing to our dark color. So every so often I release a pattern that's just purely designed to give you guys practice at color changes. So you're welcome. You're going to be proficient for the rest of the year if you've survived through this one. In our dark color, we are going to work 2 decreases across the head, changing back to our mid-tone in the second one. So there's 1. And this is number 2. So he's looking very handsome. And then in our mid-tone, we're going to work a decrease, changing back to our pale color. Row 8 starts with 3 increases. So that's 1, 2, and in this third one, we're going to change to our mid-tone. We're then just going to work 5 single crochet around. No color changes, just 5 single crochet. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Row 9 starts with 2 single crochet, changing to our pale color. 1 and 2. Then 3 increases, changing back to our mid-tone. 1, 2, and 3. 2 single crochet, changing to our dark tone, 1 and 2. Then 4 single crochet, changing back to our mid-tone, 1, 2, 3, 4. There we are at the end of row 9, and you should have 14 stitches in your round. So in row 10, we're going to start with a decrease, and then 2 single crochet, changing to our pale colour, 1, 2, 3 increases, changing back to our mid-tone, then single crochet. So then we're going to finish row 10 with 3 decreases. 1, 2, and 3. And you may notice some slight continuity errors, a little bit of a jump in the middle of that row. That is because there was an issue uncovered, and I decided to go back and refilm completely rather than just warn you about it. So just little things like I've trimmed off the yarn already, and so I apologize if any of that is confusing. So there at the end of row 10, you can trim off your dark color, which would look something like this. Then heading into row 11, we're going to work a decrease and a single crochet, changing to our pale color. 4 single crochet, changing back to our mid-tone, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then a single crochet, 2 decreases, 1 and 2, and a single crochet back to the start of our round. This should leave you with 10 stitches in total, and you can trim off your pale color at this point, which again would look something like this. And so if you would like to add a little bit of stuffing, now is your chance. I honestly think that it's so full of color changes and eyeballs that there's not a whole lot of room, but we can try. Get that up in there. That's what we look like. One of the eyes is bugging out a little bit, that's okay. Just give it a little squish to settle it back in where it goes. And with that, we are ready to work the final row, which is row 12, entirely in our mid-tone, and it's going to be 5 decreases around. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and finish off. So I am going to take the remaining yarn tail and pull it through the front loops only of each of my remaining stitches just to close off this little opening. And tuck your end away. So there is our little snake head. And I have to say, I am very pleased with how these colors are turning out so far. So popping the head to one side, we are now going to work on the coils. So the coils are a bit of an interesting piece where we're actually going to start making this little flat disc. We then work up and around the first coil and then down and around the second coil. And we do not stuff this piece at all until it's time to assemble. So for this one here, we're going to be starting in our mid-tone. So there's just going to be a whole lot of beige. So we're going to start with a magic ring of 6 single crochet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Row 2 is 6 increases. And you may have noticed already, but I do work invisible increases, and that's just, again, a personal preference thing, just like with invisible decreases. You just work the first stitch of an increase through the front loop only, and the second stitch of the increase through both loops. Okay, Okay, so that's 3. 4. 5. And 6. So you should have 12 stitches in your round. Row 3 is 6 repeats of a single crochet and then an increase. So there's our first repeat. We're going to do that 5 more times around to bring our row up to 18 stitches in total. Row 4 is then 18 front post single crochet around. Now we use those stitches to help us turn the corner because this is actually kind of the inside of the work. So it is a structural thing. So while most stitches are worked through the loops on top of the work, when you're working post stitches, you are actually working around the stem of the stitch or the post of the stitch. So because we are working front post single crochet, we want to insert our hook from the front of the work, around the post, back to the front of the work. We then just yarn over and pull up a loop around the post and yarn over and complete our single crochet. Now this will leave a set of loops from the stitch we just made, and it also leaves a set of loops free on the back of the work. Now if you're going to struggle to find those later, you can just use a cheeky bobby pin or stitch marker now, because we use those when it comes time to assemble our snake. But marking the first one should be enough to help you identify where the rest of them are. So there's our first one, and we're going to work 17 more of those around the edge of our piece. (17) and 18. So that's what mine currently looks like. And you can see there those loops that I was talking about on the back of the work. Now the ones that are relevant to us for the next few rows are the ones that we can see from the front. So I want you to count backwards from your hook until you find the 18th stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. That little thing there is the 18th stitch. So that's where we're going to work the first stitch from row 5. And row 5 is just 18 single crochet around. 17 and 18. In row 6, we're going to start working up some of the back markings. And I would just like to say that if you just ignore all of the color changes where we're changing to our dark color for the rest of this pattern, it takes the difficulty down from like annoying down to just like manageable snake level. I would still work any of the ones changing to pale, but any of the ones changing to your dark color, just skip them if they're becoming annoying. Different morphs, like different snake colorations, have different patches anyway. So maybe yours is just a unique little noodle. It sneaks up on you. So in row 6, we are going to be working 9 repeats of a single crochet, changing to our dark color, and then a single crochet changing back to our mid-tone. So yeah, we're changing colors every single stitch. That's our first repeat. We're going to do that 8 more times around the edge of our snake. And in the final stitch of the round, we are still working a dark single crochet, changing back to our mid-tone. Like so. And I'm going to take a moment here and untangle, and I would encourage you to do this at the end of every row as well. It's going to get worse before it gets better. Okay, and then this strange bunchy little thing is how we should currently look. So we're actually looking at like the wrong side or the inside of the work there. And if you pop it in the other way, that's the right side. There's just a lot going on in this piece. So row 7 is 6 repeats of a different color pattern altogether. So this time we are repeating a single crochet, changing to our dark, an increase, changing back to our mid-tone, and then a single crochet. No color change. So there is our first repeat. We're going to do that 5 more times. So single crochet, changing to our dark, increase, changing back to our mid. And a single crochet. So 4 more of those around. So what that looks like functionally is basically repeats of 2 dark stitches, then 2 beige, then 2 dark, then 2 beige, then 2 dark, then 2 beige, the whole way around. And that's what my color changes look like as well, where I'm just carrying that yarn forward. It's kind of like a little basket weave. None of that will be visible at the end though, so don't get too attached. It's going to actually like curl over this way a little bit, and we should start being able to see some of that first coil forming. Okay, row 8 is 6 repeats of a single crochet, changing to our dark color, 2 single crochet, changing back to our mid-tone, and then an increase. And we're going to repeat that sequence around. So there we are at the end of row 8, and we should have 30 stitches in our round. Okay, row 9, we're going to work 6 repeats of a single crochet, changing to our dark tone, then a single crochet, changing to our mid-tone, 2 single crochet, changing to our dark tone, so 1 and 2, then a single crochet, changing back to our mid-tone. So the sequence consists of 5 stitches, and it goes mid, dark, mid, mid, dark. And we're going to repeat that 5 more times around the edge of our piece. Like so. So you should be able to see these nice like stripes and spots starting to form, and we should still have 30 stitches left in our round. Row 10 sequence is a lot friendlier. It's 6 repeats of 4 single crochet, changing to our dark, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then a dark, changing back to our mid. So there is our sequence of 5 stitches, and we're going to repeat that 6 times in total around the edge of our snake. And then in the last stitch of row 10, we're going to still work that dark single crochet, but we're going to change to our pale color. Like so. So this is what I look like at the end of row 10. So with our pale color on our hook, we're going to work row 11, which is 6 repeats of 3 single crochet, 1, 2, 3, and then a decrease. So there is our first repeat, and we're going to do that 5 more times around to bring our row down to 24 stitches. And then in the final decrease, of that row, we're going to change back to our mid-tone. So that is the whole top coil done, and you can get a better idea of what this is going to look like if you just poke that center down, form a little donut. You could even grab your head at this point, pop it on in there. He's such a little boop, cutie patootie. I'm sorry, it's a scientific designation. I don't make the rules. Now I am going to trim off my pale color for now, but we will be still using this later on in the piece. Just because with all the color changes we still have to do, you just really don't need another color in the mix. Okay, so row 12 is 24 front post single crochet around, and that's just like we did. So that's just like we did for row 4. It's just this time the row is slightly bigger. 24. Like so. And once again, I do encourage you to count backwards from your hook until you find the 24th stitch, which for me is this one here, and that tells you where the first stitch of the next row should go. So we have just 2 more rows of intense color changes to go. Okay, so in row 13, we are going to work 6 repeats of a single crochet, changing to our dark color. 2 single crochet, changing back to our mid-tone. So 1 and 2, and then an increase. So 1, 2, increase is the sequence, and we're going to do that 5 more times around. There we go, and you should have 30 stitches in your round again. And row 14 has an attached apology. This sequence is awful. So it's 3 repeats, right, of a single crochet, changing to our dark, a single crochet, changing back to our mid, 2 single crochet, changing back to our dark, 1 and a single crochet, changing back to our mid, a single crochet, changing back to our dark, a single crochet, changing back to our mid, then 2 single crochet, changing back to our dark, 1 and 2, and then an increase, changing back to our mid-tone. So that sequence is basically 11 stitches long. So it's 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 2, 2. There is that sequence. Thankfully it's on the screen. We're going to do that 2 more times around the snake. Whew, we survived the gauntlet. We made all the color changes. There we go. And it was worth it. Look at that beautiful stripiness. Stripy little splotchy fella. So we are done with our mid-tone now, but I'm superstitious about this sort of thing, so I will not be trimming that off until we finish the next row as well. So row 15 is worked all in our mid-tone, and it is 33 single crochet around, changing to our pale color in the final stitch. So that's 32, and in 33 we're going to change to our pale color. So at this point I'm going to trim off my dark yarn. And we could technically trim off the mid-tone at this point, but I'm not going to. I'm superstitious. I told you. I'm going to leave it for 1 more row. So working entirely in our pale color, we are going to work 3 repeats of 9 single crochet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then a decrease. So there's 1. We're going to do that 2 more times around. And the final decrease. Delightful. I'm now going to trim off the mid-tone, leaving us with just our pale color attached. And we're going to work 6 repeats of 3 single crochet. 1, 2, 3, and a decrease. So there is our first repeat, and we're going to do that 5 more times around to bring our row down to 24 stitches. Like so. And finally, row 18 is 6 repeats of a single crochet, a decrease, and a single crochet. So there's our first repeat, and we're going to do that 5 more times around to bring our row down to 18 stitches. Like so. And we're going to finish off, but we're going to leave a long tail for sewing. And I don't normally do that, but I have reasons for doing it this time. There we go. So we should still have our marker all the way down in there from that first row of front post single crochet. So if we continue poking the middle of that donut all the way down and through, one thing you will notice, here we go, is that there are 18 stitches in our final row of crochet, as well as 18 sets of loops left available from that 4th row. Just saying, that's not a coincidence. But we have not stuffed our little snack yet, so he's a little bit of a pancake. But that is our body coil piece. If you stretch it all out, it looks like this. But we take the middle, poke it all the way down, forms the coils. It's like a magic trick. It's always cool to see something like that work. So I am going to pop this to one side, and we are going to make the final piece, which is this shrimpy little tail, which just adds to the I've accidentally tied myself in a knot, but no, I don't want your help aesthetic. Okay, so we are going to be starting in our mid-tone, and we're going to start with a magic ring of 5, changing to our dark tone in the 5th stitch. So it's 3, 4, and this one here is going to be number 5. So the trick to changing colors in the magic ring, or at least something that makes it slightly easier, is you insert your hook, yarn over and pull up your loop, and then you pull that magic ring tight when you're halfway through the stitch. Just helps hold everything in place a little bit better. So attaching our darkest shade, our darkest tone, whatever you wish to call it. I know there's probably a correct name for it, but goodness knows I'm terrible at using the correct name for things. There we go. So there we are at the end of row 1. Row 2 is then 5 single crochet, changing back to our mid-tone. One, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So there we are at the end of row 2. Row 3 is just 5 single crochet, changing back to our dark tone. And we're actually going to repeat those 2 rows, so 5 single crochet in our dark tone and 5 single crochet in our mid color 2 more times, all the way up to the end of row 7. Then in the final stitch of row 7, instead of changing back to our dark tone, we're going to change to our pale color. So there we are at the end of row 7. That is the tip of his tiny stripy tail. In row 8, we are going to work an increase, changing to our dark tone. Then 4 single crochet, changing back to our pale tone. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Row 9 is 2 single crochet, changing to our mid-tone. 1 and 2. Then 4 single crochet, changing back to our pale tone. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Row 10 is an increase, changing back to our dark color. So 1 and 2, and then 5 single crochet, changing back to our pale color. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Row 11 is an increase. And then a single crochet changing to our mid-tone. Then 5 single crochet back to the start of our round. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, we have just one row to go. So in our mid-tone, we are going to work a single crochet changing to our pale color. An increase changing to our dark. 1, 2, and then 6 single crochet back to the start of our round. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and finish off. Now, I'm not going to stuff my tail at all. You can sneak a little bit in there if you like, if you want to. I think that unstuffed, it has more of a natural curl to it, which I think lends itself to the snakiness of the bit. So I will say that I'm going to stuff all of these ends down inside it though, which is a form of stuffing. And there is our finished tail. Okay, so now we have all of our pieces made. The time has come to assemble, and assembly can be a little bit tricky for this piece. I am going to be personally using a curved needle throughout this process, but you should be fine to do it with a straight needle. Honestly, you could probably do the assembly with your hook if you're super motivated. But I do feel like whenever we're doing any kind of non-traditional type of assembly, I do like to at least warn y'all. So consider yourselves warned. I'm going to take some of my mid-tone first, and I'm going to pick which side I like best of my coils. So this is where the back of our piece is here, where we've got this little finishing off point. So I think this will be the front on this side over here. So that's the way I'll have him facing. So I'm just going to take the head and scooch it on down in there, nice and cozy. Hey buddy, boop. So all I'm going to do with the base of the neck touching the base of the coils and the head pointing in the right direction, that's important, there we go, is I'm going to work 1 or 2 basic stitches through both the base of the coils and sort of the stump of the neck. So I'm just going to start by locking my yarn in place, just with a small stitch. Yeah, so just so it doesn't pull free. And then I'm going to work my needle down through the layers, making sure that I've caught all the layers by giving the head a tug, seeing if it pulls through free, and it doesn't. That means my needle is through all of the layers it needs to be. So 1 big stitch there, and I'm going to work another big stitch across. So just like nice big stitches, locking everything in place. And then we'll do another tiny locking stitch, just so that the yarn doesn't pull free. Trim that off and tuck that end away. Just to the inside of the snake is fine. And the tail from the starting magic ring should also be tucked away at this point. Okay, so he's looking kind of like a mushroom, but he's actually a snake. It's a snake, oh no. Okay, so the next step, we're going to poke this back out just so that the coils are the way they are supposed to be. What have I done to you, buddy? Let's just try and get this wrangled back the way it's supposed to be. There we go. So we have the last row of our coils lined up with that row of front post single crochet that we've marked earlier on. We can see 2 distinct coils. That's important. We're going to take a little bit of stuffing and we're going to stuff this top coil. And to do that, you are going to have to like pull it apart a little bit and just shove a little tiny bit in at a time. But just stuffing that top coil only. So it's stuffing mainly by feel, but just make sure that you've put a little bit of stuffing the whole way around the donut. So next up, we are going to be using the tail we left attached at the end of the coil. So I'm just going to rethread my needle with that. And this is the bit that you could probably just do with your hook if you wanted to, but if you've got the right tool for a job, you should use the right tool for the job. And we are sewing. And what I'm going to do is line up those sets of loops. So I'm holding it so that it's sticking out slightly. And we're just going to sew every single stitch the same way. So I'm going to pick up the 2 loops of my pale colour, working from the outside in, and then pick up the closest pair of stitches from that middle base piece as well, working from the inside out. So it's all just one straight line. It's 1, and then move to the next stitch, and same way. We're going to pick up first the stitches from the outer loop and then the stitches from the inner loop. And I'm going to work about 3/4 of the way around like this, and then I'm going to stop. Pop your stitch marker out now that you've found those loops. Okay, so that's just past halfway. I'll do 2 more and then we'll stop. Okay, so that's about 3/4 of the way. We started here and now I'm here, leaving this little opening for us. So what I want you to do is turn your snake back up the right way, and we're going to work out where we want to put the tail. So what I recommend is, if you consider your snake to be a clock face and you consider the head to be facing 6, I suggest you go with either a 2 o'clock or a 10 o'clock position. So that would be either out this way or out that way. So for example, cranky little fellow over here, his little tail is sticking out in the 2 o'clock position. So for today's, maybe I'll do the 10 o'clock position. So having worked that out, it'll go out this way here. It means that I want to stuff the whole lower donut except for where I want that tail to sit. If you don't stuff the bit where the tail goes, it'll curve up nicely, allowing it to stick out from under the coils and allowing your snake to sit flat. So I'm going to very carefully stuff the entire donut except for where I want that tail to sit. So just like with the top coil, you kind of just have to like poke a little bit of stuffing in at a time and work it into everywhere on that donut except for where you want that tail to be. Unless you're not doing a tail, in which case stuff the donut. Okay, so I've stuffed from here all the way to there. And I could probably stuff a little bit more on this side, but I haven't sewn it shut yet, so it makes it a little bit trickier. So we are just going to be sewing it the rest of the way shut. So if you feel like you have to sew it a little bit more before continuing to stuff, like I do, just gonna stuff and sew the rest of it as we go. Okay, that gap is too small to be functional. I hope I got enough stuffing in. And if I didn't, we're just gonna squeeze some of it around. He's a little understuffed, but there's still plenty of room for that coil to fold upwards, and so I'm happy. So I'm gonna finish closing off this gap. You may find that you haven't matched up your stitches perfectly. That's fine. The stitches are there as kind of like just a helpful thing to make sure that you put enough in to seal it properly and evenly space them relatively well. It's not the end of the world if you know, that's not quite true. Okay, there you go, buddy. I think his name might be Button. Alrighty, so with that sealed, note that I'm not trimming this off. I'm going to take my tail, I'm going to squish the open end of it flat so that the belly part is facing me or facing upwards. I'm going to flip the snake. Sorry, buddy. And I'm going to pin it so that the open edge of that lines up with the edge between our pale colour and our mid-tone. I think these are the first pins that we've had to use all project, but nevertheless, I would encourage you to pin it. Turn your snake back over and make sure you're happy. Once it's sewn on, it's way harder to change it. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. So I'm going to use just the rest of this tail, and I'm going to sew the opening shut and to the base of the snake. So it's working through 3 layers there. So I've got 2 layers of the tail and into the base. A curved needle does help with this process, but again, it's absolutely achievable with a straight needle. I just prefer a curved one, mostly. And like, I don't think I even have straight needles anymore just because the curved ones are so much easier and they cost the same as the straight ones do. There we go. Take those pins out. That is the worst sewing job I think I've done in a very long time, but it's fine because it's under the snake. Flip our snake over. You could also anchor this tail to the body if you wanted to. I might just leave mine a little bit free form today. I think that's fine. Also with the head, you can anchor the chin down, and I might do that today just because my snake keeps popping his head out a little bit further than I want. Okay, most of the way there. So we just have a couple of little details that we want to add to the face. So you can leave the eyes as they are, or you can choose to add a little eyelid. Beware that the eyelid does make him seem a little bit cranky. So I don't know if I want to do those on this little guy because he's seeming very bright and friendly. Maybe I'll do just a very slight eyelid over the top of those two eyes. I'm going to use my mid-tone for that, I think. Either colour option would have been fine in this context. And I'm personally going to thread out into the underside of the head just because his head keeps poking up a little bit more than I'd like. So I'm just going to stitch it down to the body and anchor it into place there as well. Squish, squish, squish the face. So get it till it's sitting right. And then just one little stitch through the coils to hold him all snugly. Trim that off and tuck it away. The last thing we have to do is the mouth, and I am going to suggest a trick here for the mouth that only is going to work if your yarn is made up of multiple plies, and you'll see what I mean in a second. So we're going to want to take a little bit of either black or your dark color would probably work just as well, and we want just a very thin little mouth. So I'm going to take a strand of yarn and I'm going to unwind it until I have just one of the plies. My yarn in particular is made up of 3. Actually, don't know if these are referred to as plies or not, but basically my yarn is made up of like 3 little strands. And so I'm going to just peel off one of those little strands. You could also use some cotton for this, or just use the full strand of yarn. I also think that's fine. I don't think there's any wrong way to do things. And we're going to stitch on a mouth, and I'm going to use the starting magic ring as a guide on how to get this mouth specifically correct. So if you look down at the nose here, you can see that starting magic ring. So that magic ring represents the tip at the point of the mouth. So right there. So what I want you to do is find the two stitches going into the magic ring that sit on like the bottom side of the mouth. I'm going to thread in from the side of the head so that I can hide the end a little bit better. And I want you to thread out on the outer edge of those 2 stitches we've identified. Just like that. Leave a little tail out. That will help you finesse this a little bit better. Then I want you to go into the middle of the magic ring and out to the other side. So we've got 2 stitches in between and we're coming out the other side. Like that. And back into the middle of the magic ring and out somewhere where you can tuck away pretty easily. So I'm going to go over here and hide it behind the jaw. Pull. There we go. And I'm going to pull these 2 ends quite firmly because I want it to be tucked away a little bit. So there is just a little snake mouth. Trim those off and we're done. So there is our little hognose snake. I hope you enjoyed making him with me today. As mentioned, given that we'd already made a couple of snakes on this channel, I did want to try and go for something a little bit different, and it was inspired by Ekans, a Pokemon that we made during the year last year. So those are our 2 little Hognose Snake piles. So that's an albino morph, and then we have like a slightly more usual coloration to go with the fact that it's Year of the Wood snake, technically. So yeah, there are our finished little snakes, and I can't wait to see how all of yours turn out as well. I'll be checking them out on Discord, and you might see some at the end of next week's video. But yeah, other than that, I will see you next week. Okay, bye! Hey, editing me. Put a running tally on the screen of how many colour changes we've done so far. That's too much detail. It's way too much detail for any one face. I don't think so. It's very yellow. Why are we so yellow? So that means we're going to slip. Come on, I'm just a little rusty. I'm a little rusty. We'll warm up. We'll get into it. It's fine. I hope that's focused. It seems to be focused. Hopefully you guys are understanding. No, we can't. Okay, at this point, this is what my yarn looks like. This tangle, I thought I was going to be able to make it to the end of the piece without dealing with it, but I cannot. So just bear with me for 1 second. If you can just get one of the strands untangled, you can then just spin to win. There we go. All right. All organized, ready to carry on. There is not a lot of room in your head, little snack. That does explain a lot about you, though. We can do this. We've got this. We've totally got this. There's no reason for you to be like this. So, So there we are at the end of row 8, and we should have 30 stitches in our round. I only have 29. Dang it, I only have 29 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 30. No, I have 30. I have 30. I'm alarming myself over nothing. To bring our row down. Are we focusing or what? Oh, look, that fixed the color balance too. That's so annoying. He doesn't want to come out. He's shy. Hey, buddy, do you want to come out? Okay, so he's looking kind of like a mushroom, but he's actually a snake. It's a snake. Oh no.